The package arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a courier who looked far too nervous for someone simply carrying correspondence. Miss Eleanor Hartley signed for it without thinking, her mind already on the mountain of letters she needed to sort for her employer, the Duke of Ravencroft. She'd been his secretary for 6 months now, an unconventional position for a woman, but the Duke was known for his unconventional choices. He valued competence over propriety, and Eleanor had proven herself more than capable of managing his extensive business affairs and correspondence. The package felt heavier than expected. She turned it over, frowning at the unfamiliar wax seal, not the Duke's usual crimson crest, but something darker, more ornate. The address was correct, Ravencroft House, London. But something about it felt wrong. Eleanor should have waited. Should have set it aside for the Duke to open himself when he returned from Parliament. But she'd opened dozens of his packages before, always with his explicit permission to handle anything that arrived in his absence. This was part of her job. She broke the seal. Inside was a leather journal, worn at the edges, and a letter. The handwriting was feminine, elegant, achingly familiar, though she couldn't place why. She unfolded the letter, her eyes scanning the opening line before her brain could stop her. My dearest Alexander, I hope this letter finds you well, though I suspect you're drowning in parliamentary tedium as usual. I've enclosed the journal you requested. Yes, I kept it all these years, every entry documenting our travels. I know you said you needed it for your book, but darling, are you certain this is wise? If anyone discovers what we did, what we were to each other. Eleanor's hands began to tremble. The scandal wouldn't just touch you. It would destroy everything. Your position in the Lords, your family's reputation, your sister's prospects. And for me, well, we both know what society does to women who step outside their prescribed roles. Women who travel unchaperoned. Women who work in fields meant for men. Women who love freely. But I trust your judgment. I always have. If you believe you can publish this research without exposing us, then I support you. Just promise me you'll be careful. The Duke of Ravencroft cannot afford to be associated with a female archaeologist who spent 3 years excavating Egyptian tombs while pretending to be his research assistant. Especially when that assistant was his lover. Keep yourself safe, Alexander. And know that whatever happens, those years in Egypt were the happiest of my life. Yours always, Victoria. Eleanor read it 3 times, her heart hammering harder with each pass. The Duke of Ravencroft had spent 3 years in Egypt, ostensibly conducting archaeological research. Society remembered it as the period when the young Duke, newly inherited to his title, had distinguished himself as a scholar before returning to take up his duties in Parliament. What society didn't know was that he'd had a partner. A woman. Not just a colleague, but a lover. Someone whose contributions to his research, now being prepared for publication, would remain forever anonymous because revealing her would destroy them both. Oh God, Eleanor whispered. The journal sat beside the letter. Against every instinct that told her to stop, she opened it. The first entry was dated 7 years ago. Victoria discovered a sealed chamber today. The local workers wanted to break through immediately, but she insisted we proceed carefully. She was right, of course. Inside, we found intact pottery that may predate the 18th dynasty. It says I should take credit for the discovery, but that feels wrong. This is her triumph, her careful observation that led us here. Why must the world demand I claim her brilliance as my own? Eleanor flipped through more pages, her throat tight. Entry after entry detailed archaeological discoveries, yes, but also something deeper. A relationship built on intellectual partnership and genuine affection. Late nights discussing hieroglyphics by lamplight. Arguments about methodology that ended in laughter. Shared wonder at uncovering secrets buried for millennia. And through it all, the constant awareness that their relationship had to remain hidden. That Victoria's work would be attributed to him. That society would never accept a female archaeologist, let alone one who'd spent 3 years living and working alongside an unmarried duke. The final entry made Eleanor's eyes burn. Tomorrow we return to England. Tomorrow Victoria becomes Miss Thornton again, a respectable woman who spent 3 years on the continent recovering from a mysterious illness. And I become the Duke who made groundbreaking archaeological discoveries alone. She says she doesn't regret it. That the work was worth the sacrifice. But I see the pain in her eyes when she packs away her excavation tools, her journals, her identity. I'm writing a book about our findings. I'll make sure her name appears, as my research assistant, at least. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's all I can offer without destroying us both. I love her. And I'm failing her. Those two truths will haunt me forever. Eleanor closed the journal carefully, her hands shaking. This wasn't just about an illicit romance. This was about a woman whose brilliance had been deliberately erased. About a man struggling with guilt over claiming credit for her work. About a secret so dangerous that its exposure would ruin multiple lives. And she'd just stumbled into it completely by accident. Eleanor had spent 48 hours in agony, the journal and letter hidden in her rooms, her mind spinning through increasingly desperate scenarios. She had to return them. Had to pretend she'd never opened the package. But the Duke would know. He'd see it in her face, in the way she couldn't meet his eyes. The summons arrived via his butler, *, the Duke requests your presence in his study immediately. *. Her stomach dropped. The study was exactly as always, walls of books, artifacts from Egypt displayed with quiet pride, the scent of leather and tobacco. The Duke stood by the window, his back to her, posture rigid. You opened it, he said without preamble, without turning around. Eleanor's throat went dry. Your Grace, I... Don't lie to me, Miss Hartley. I've watched you for 2 days. You're many things, but a skilled deceiver isn't one of them. He finally turned, and his expression was carefully blank. You read the letter. The journal. There was no point denying it. Yes. Something flickered across his features, surprised that she'd admitted it so readily, perhaps. Then we have a problem. Do we? She forced herself to move further into the room. Or do you simply assume we have one? You know about Victoria. About Egypt. About, he stopped, jaw tight. About what I did. What we did. I know you loved someone, Eleanor said quietly. I know she contributed to your research in ways the world will never acknowledge. I know you've carried guilt about that for 7 years. And I know this secret could destroy your credibility if it became public. My credibility. He laughed, sharp and bitter. Try my sister's prospects. My family's reputation. Victoria's entire life. She's built a respectable existence now, teaching at a girls' school, quietly publishing botanical papers under a male pseudonym. If anyone connected her to those years in Egypt. I understand. Do you? He studied her intently. Do you understand what you could do with this information? The power you now hold. Anger flared hot in her chest. Because I'm your employee? Because you assume I'm either too ignorant to grasp what I know, or too opportunistic not to use it against you. Because you're human. And humans are predictable when they see advantage. Then you don't know me at all, Your Grace. Eleanor pulled the package from her bag where she'd tucked it before coming. Here. Take it. I haven't touched it again since that first mistake. Everything is exactly as it was. He stared at the package as though it might explode. Why? Because it's not mine, she said simply. Because clearly this means something to you, to both of you. And I have no desire to be the person who uses someone's vulnerability as a weapon. The Duke took the package slowly, his fingers brushing hers for one electric moment. You expect me to believe you're simply being altruistic? I expect you to believe whatever you need to feel safe, Your Grace. But I'm telling you the truth. I don't want anything from you. I just want to forget this ever happened. You can't forget. He set the package on his desk. You'll carry this knowledge for the rest of your life. How do I trust that you won't use it later? When you need something. When someone offers the right price? The accusation stung. You don't, Eleanor said coldly. You don't trust me because trust requires seeing the best in people rather than the worst. And men in your position don't do that with women in mine. She turned toward the door. I'll tender my resignation immediately. It's clear we can't continue working together under these circumstances. Wait. She paused, hand on the doorknob. You're right, he said quietly. I did assume the worst. I've spent 7 years guarding this secret, watching everyone for signs of suspicion. I've learned to trust no one. That must be exhausting. It is. He moved closer. But you're also right that I judged you unfairly. You've been nothing but professional, discreet, and competent in your work. And now, when you could leverage what you know, you're walking away instead. What else would I do? Most people would negotiate. Better pay, better terms, immunity from dismissal. His green eyes held hers. Why aren't you? Because I've spent my entire adult life fighting to be taken seriously in a world that believes women are only good for managing households and producing heirs, Eleanor said. I've faced men who thought I was too educated, too independent, too *ambitious* for my own good. I refuse to become the kind of person who uses others' secrets for personal gain. I refuse to prove them right about women being manipulative and untrustworthy. Silence fell between them. Don't resign, the Duke said finally. Please. I need someone I can trust in this position, and I'm beginning to think that person might be you. You just said you don't trust me. I said I don't trust easily. There's a difference. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. Stay. Prove to me that my first instinct was wrong. Prove that you're the person you seem to be, the most capable secretary I've ever had, and someone who keeps confidences. Eleanor studied him. You're asking me to audition for your trust. I'm asking you to give me time to believe you. Time to see that you won't use this against me or Victoria. That's all. She should refuse. Should walk away from this impossible situation. But something in his expression, a vulnerability beneath the aristocratic control, made her hesitate. 1 month, she heard herself say. I'll stay for 1 month. But after that, if you still don't trust me, I'm leaving. I won't spend my life under suspicion. 1 month, he agreed. Thank you, Miss Hartley. She nodded once and left before she could change her mind. Behind her, she heard him exhale, a long, shaky breath that sounded almost like relief. Eleanor had kept her word, maintaining perfect professionalism while managing the Duke's increasingly complex schedule. They'd settled into a careful routine, polite, efficient, with an undercurrent of something neither acknowledged. She learned things about him she hadn't noticed before. The way he went quiet when reviewing his Egyptian research, as though the memories were both precious and painful. How he still wrote letters regularly, which he posted himself rather than giving to the servants. How he kept a small sketch of a woman hidden in his desk drawer, Victoria, Eleanor presumed, though she'd only glimpsed it once by accident. And the Duke, in turn, seemed to be learning about her. He noticed when she stayed late to finish projects, when she anticipated problems before they arose, when she handled difficult correspondence with diplomatic precision. You're wasted as a secretary, he said one evening as she prepared to leave for the day. You should be managing estates or running businesses. Society doesn't allow women to do those things, Your Grace. Society is idiotic. He looked up from his papers. You're brilliant, Miss Hartley. Surely you know that. The compliment caught her off guard. I'm competent. There's a difference. No, you're brilliant. I've watched you reorganize my entire filing system, identify errors in my steward's accounts that he'd missed for months, and handle correspondence that would baffle most men. You're exactly the kind of person Victoria would have appreciated. Eleanor's breath caught at the name spoken aloud. I'm sorry, the Duke said quickly. I shouldn't have. No, it's... She set down her portfolio. May I ask you something? About her. He hesitated, then nodded. Do you regret it? Publishing the research without giving her proper credit. Every day. His voice was rough. The book comes out next month. My name alone on the cover, her contributions reduced to a footnote thanking the assistance of various colleagues. It makes me sick. Then why do it? Because the alternative is worse. If I credit her properly, people will ask questions. How did a woman gain such expertise? Where was she trained? What was her relationship to me? He stood, pacing. And when they can't find satisfactory answers, they'll investigate. They'll discover she was in Egypt. That we lived in the same quarters. That we spent 3 years working side by side. And they'll destroy you both, Eleanor finished quietly. Yes. He stopped at the window. So I choose the lesser betrayal. I take credit for her work, I advance my reputation on her discoveries, and I live with the guilt. Because at least that way, she's safe. Does she see it that way? I don't know. We haven't spoken in 2 years. Eleanor's chest tightened. Why not? Because it's easier for both of us. Because every letter is a risk. Because? He turned to face her. Because she told me to let her go. To move on. To find someone I could marry publicly, have children with, build the life I'm expected to have. And I can't do that while I'm still in love with her. The raw honesty in his voice made Eleanor's throat close. I'm sorry, she said. That must be incredibly lonely. It is. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. But this month, working with you, knowing someone else understands, it's been less lonely. Something shifted in the air between them. Your month is almost up, the Duke said quietly. And I find that I don't want you to leave, Miss Hartley. Not because I still suspect you, or I don't. You've proven your discretion beyond any doubt. But because? He paused. Because I've come to value your presence here. Your competence, yes, but also your companionship. Your grace. Alexander. When we're alone, call me Alexander. Eleanor's pulse quickened. That wouldn't be appropriate. Nothing about this situation is appropriate. He crossed to her. You know my deepest secret. You've seen my vulnerabilities. We're far past conventional propriety. We're employer and employee. We're two people who understand what it means to be trapped by society's expectations. He stopped just in front of her. You told me you fought your whole life to be taken seriously. Do you know what I see when I look at you? She couldn't breathe. What? Someone remarkable. Someone who should be doing far more than managing my correspondence. Someone I trust, and I don't say that lightly. Alexander. His name felt strange on her lips, intimate. Stay, he said. Not just for another month. Stay because you want to. Because you find value in this work. And if I'm being honest, because I find I'm not ready to lose someone who sees me as I actually am, rather than the role I play. Eleanor knew she should refuse. Should maintain professional distance. Should protect herself from whatever this was becoming. Instead, she heard herself say, I'll stay. His expression transformed, relief and something deeper. Thank you. But we need boundaries. Rules. Agreed. Whatever you need. This remains professional. Whatever friendship we're developing, it stays within these walls. I won't be the subject of servants' gossip or society speculation. Of course. And if Victoria ever comes back into your life, if you have a chance to be with her properly, you take it. I won't be a replacement or a distraction from what you really want. Something complicated crossed his face. You think that's what this is? I think you're lonely and guilty, and I'm convenient. And I think we both need to be careful not to confuse companionship for something more. He studied her for a long moment. You're right. As usual. He stepped back, creating distance. Professional boundaries. Friendship within limits. Understood. Eleanor nodded, ignoring the odd disappointment settling in her chest. What she didn't know was that Victoria's letter had contained one more line, one she hadn't read because it was on the back of the page she'd seen. It's time for you to move forward, Alexander. Find someone who can be with you openly, who can share your life without hiding. You deserve that happiness, even if I can't be the one to give it to you. Let me go, darling. Please. And what Alexander didn't tell her was that he was trying to let go of a love that had defined his adult life. Trying to imagine a future with someone new. Trying not to notice how his brilliant, sharp-tongued secretary had begun to occupy his thoughts in ways that had nothing to do with work. The book's publication created exactly the sensation Alexander had hoped for: critical acclaim, scholarly debate, invitations to lecture at prestigious societies. The Duke of Ravencroft had cemented his reputation as one of England's foremost Egyptologists. And Eleanor watched from the sidelines, managing the flood of correspondence, organizing his speaking engagements, and knowing the truth behind every page. Another invitation, she said one morning, setting the letter on his desk. The Royal Society wants you to present next month. Wonderful. He didn't look up from his writing. Can you? Already cleared your schedule and drafted an acceptance. You'll need to prepare a lecture, but I've pulled relevant research notes from the files. He glanced up, smiling. What would I do without you? Drown in correspondence, probably. Undoubtedly. He set down his pen. Eleanor, there's something I need to discuss with you. The use of her first name, something that had become common in private, made her attention sharpen. What is it? I've received a letter. From Victoria. Eleanor's stomach dropped. Oh. She's coming to London. Wants to see me. Says it's been long enough and we need to talk properly. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't know what she wants. Closure, perhaps. Or maybe she's changed her mind, Eleanor said quietly. Maybe she wants another chance. Would that be so terrible? Asterisk yes asterisk, Eleanor's heart screamed. But she kept her voice steady. Of course not. She's the woman you love. If you can find a way to be together, you should take it. Eleanor. When does she arrive? He studied her face, searching for something. Next week. Then you should see her. Talk to her. Figure out what you both want. She stood, gathering her portfolio. I'll make sure your schedule is clear. That's not, will you stay? When she comes. I'd like her to meet you. Why? Because you're important to me. Because I want the two most significant women in my life to know each other. He stood as well. Please. Eleanor wanted to refuse. Every instinct told her to protect herself, to avoid watching Alexander reunite with his first love. But she'd never been good at protecting her heart. All right, she said. I'll stay. Victoria Thornton arrived on a Tuesday morning, 7 years after she'd last set foot in England as anything other than a respectable school teacher. She was beautiful, dark hair, intelligent eyes, the kind of woman who commanded attention simply by existing. Eleanor felt instantly inadequate standing beside her in Alexander's study. "Miss Hartley," Victoria said warmly, offering her hand. "Alexander has written so much about you. It's wonderful to finally meet his brilliant secretary." "Written about me?" Eleanor glanced at Alexander, who had the grace to look embarrassed. "Oh yes. Apparently you've revolutionized his entire household management system and handle his correspondence better than anyone in England." Victoria's smile was genuine. "He's quite impressed with you." "I'm simply doing my job, Miss Thornton." "Victoria, please." She settled into a chair with easy grace. "And from what I understand, you're doing far more than that. Alexander tells me you know about us." "About Egypt?" Eleanor's eyes shot to Alexander, who nodded confirmation. "I told her." "I hope that's all right." "You trust her," Victoria said. "It wasn't a question." "Completely." Something passed between them, a test, perhaps, or an acknowledgement. Then Victoria turned back to Eleanor with a smile that reached her eyes. "Then I trust her too. Anyone Alexander believes in this absolutely must be remarkable." They talked for hours that day, about Egypt, about archaeology, about the challenges Victoria faced trying to publish research under a pseudonym. Eleanor found herself genuinely liking the other woman, her sharp wit and fierce intelligence, her passion for her work despite the obstacles society placed in her path. And she watched Alexander with Victoria, seeing the easy affection between them, the shared history, the way they finished each other's thoughts. This was what love looked like, Eleanor realized. Not the careful professional friendship she'd built with Alexander, but this deep, fundamental connection between two people who'd shared extraordinary experiences. She should be happy for them. Should hope they found a way to be together. Instead, her heart was quietly breaking. On Victoria's third day in London, Eleanor found her in the library, examining Alexander's Egyptian artifacts with practiced expertise. "These are magnificent," Victoria said without looking up. "I remember when we found this scarab." Alexander was so excited he nearly fell into an open shaft. Eleanor smiled despite herself. "That sounds like him. He hasn't changed much. Still brilliant, still intense, still carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders." Victoria set down the artifact carefully. "But you've helped with that, I think. His letters this past year have been lighter. Happier. I'm glad." "Eleanor, or may I call you Eleanor?" "Of course." "Eleanor, I need to tell you something." Victoria turned to face her directly. "I didn't come to London to reunite with Alexander. I came to let him go properly." Eleanor's breath caught. "What?" "I love him. I always will. But we can't have a life together, not the way we'd want. And I've realized that trying to hold on to what we had is preventing both of us from moving forward." Victoria's expression was sad but certain. "He needs to find someone he can be with openly. Someone who can share his life without hiding." "But you?" "I'm not that person. I can't be." She smiled gently. "But I think you might be." "No. No, that's not. We're just employer and employee. Friends at most." "Are you?" Victoria tilted her head. "Because the way he talks about you, the way his entire face changes when he mentions your name, that doesn't sound like simple friendship to me." Eleanor's heart hammered. "He loves you." "He loved who I was 7 years ago. Who we were together in Egypt." Victoria's voice was kind. "But people change. Lives change. And I think he's been falling for you without realizing it, falling for the woman who shares his daily life, who understands his work, who makes him laugh and challenges him and stands beside him. Even if that's true, and I'm not saying it is, what difference does it make? I'm his secretary. Society would never accept." "Society never accepts anything interesting," Victoria interrupted. Trust me, I know. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Before Eleanor could respond, Alexander entered the library. Am I interrupting? Not at all, Victoria said smoothly. I was just telling Eleanor about the time you got locked in a tomb overnight. I thought we agreed never to speak of that incident, Alexander said, but he was smiling. Eleanor watched them together, two people who had loved deeply and were now learning to let go. And she felt something shift in her chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. Victoria left London after a week, hugging them both goodbye with tears in her eyes. Take care of him, she whispered to Eleanor. And let him take care of you. We're not. Not yet, perhaps. But you will be. Victoria squeezed her hands. Don't be afraid, Eleanor. You deserve happiness as much as anyone. After she left, the house felt different. Quieter. Alexander seemed both lighter and more melancholy, as though a weight had lifted but left an ache in its place. They worked in silence most of that day, until finally Eleanor couldn't stand it anymore. Are you all right? She asked. I don't know. He set down his pen. I spent 7 years loving her, imagining impossible futures, carrying guilt. And now it's over. Really over. She made that clear. I'm sorry. Don't be. She's right, about everything. We can't have what we once did, and holding on to that was preventing both of us from moving forward. He looked at Eleanor. She said something interesting before she left. What? She told me I was a fool if I didn't see what was right in front of me. Eleanor's pulse quickened. I don't understand. Don't you? Alexander stood, moving around the desk to where she sat today. Eleanor, this past year working with you, getting to know you, it's been the best year I've had since Egypt. Not because you remind me of Victoria, you don't. You're entirely your own person, with your own brilliance and strength. But because you've made me remember what it feels like to genuinely connect with someone. Alexander? I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I know the position you're in, the power imbalance, the risk to your reputation. I just need you to know that you're not simply my secretary. You're not just someone convenient. You're important to me in ways that have nothing to do with work. Eleanor stood, her legs unsteady. You're grieving. You've just said goodbye to someone you loved. You're not thinking clearly. I've never thought more clearly in my life. He reached out, stopping just short of touching her. But if you don't feel the same, if this is truly one-sided, tell me now and we'll never speak of it again. We'll go back to being employer and employee, and I'll find a way to bury these feelings. Eleanor's throat closed. Every logical part of her brain screamed to refuse, to protect herself, to maintain professional distance. But she'd spent her whole life being careful. Being logical. Protecting herself from disappointment. And she was so tired of being careful. I do, she whispered. Feel the same. I've tried not to, tried to convince myself it was just admiration or friendship or professional respect, but... He kissed her then, soft and careful and nothing like she'd imagined. And when they broke apart, both breathless, Eleanor felt something click into place in her chest. What do we do now? She asked. I don't know. Alexander rested his forehead against hers. But we'll figure it out together. The scandal was smaller than Eleanor had feared. Yes, there were whispers when the Duke of Ravencroft announced his engagement to his secretary. Yes, society matrons tutted about propriety and appropriate matches. But Alexander had never cared much for society's opinions, and Eleanor had spent her life defying expectations anyway. They married in a small ceremony, family and close friends only. Victoria sent a letter of congratulations and a beautiful set of Egyptian artifacts for their home. * be happy together *, she'd written. * you both deserve it. Eleanor kept working, though her role evolved. She managed Alexander's research, collaborated on his next book, with her name properly credited this time, and began publishing her own work on ancient civilizations. She also maintained correspondence with Victoria, the two women building a friendship based on mutual respect and shared understanding of what it meant to love the same complicated, brilliant man. On their first anniversary, Alexander presented Eleanor with a leather journal. "For our own adventures," he said. "Whatever we discover together. No secrets, no hiding. Just us." Eleanor opened it to find the first page already filled with his handwriting. "Today I married the most remarkable woman I've ever known. Not in spite of society's objections, but because of them. Because she taught me that love isn't about choosing the easy path, it's about choosing someone and deciding their happiness matters more than anything else. Eleanor makes me want to be better. To do better. To build a life that's honest and full and meaningful." Victoria was right. I was a fool not to see what was right in front of me. But I'm seeing clearly now. This is where our story begins. Eleanor's eyes burned as she read it. Then she took the pen he offered and added her own entry. "I never expected to find love. I certainly never expected to find it with a duke carrying secrets, guilt, and a past that most would find scandalous. But Alexander taught me that trust is a choice we make over and over. That vulnerability is strength. That the right person will see all of you, including the parts you try to hide, and love you more because of them. Today I married my best friend, my intellectual partner, and the man who showed me that opening the wrong package can lead to exactly the right place. Here's to our future. Whatever we discover, we'll face it together." They spent their first anniversary evening in Alexander's study, surrounded by books and artifacts and the comfortable silence of two people who didn't need to fill every moment with words. "Happy?" Alexander asked, pulling her close. "Deliriously," Eleanor replied. And for the first time in her life, she meant it without reservation. She'd opened a package by mistake and found the Duke's most dangerous secret inside. But what she'd really found was herself, her courage, her worth, and her capacity to love someone despite all the logical reasons not to. Some mistakes, it turned out, were the best things that could ever happen.